So, in no particular order, I've got some of our spares out. In fact, I've got most of the spares out. There are some things that I have not got out because I can't be buggered to go and get them out of the locker, but I know where they are. The one thing that I haven't got out of the locker is the spare alternator. Just in case the alternator ever goes down, it's stuck in a locker, we have a spare. Similarly, we have here a spare starter motor for our Yanmar. So if we ever lose a starter motor, we have a spare. It seems a little bit of overkill, but if you can't start the motor, you can't raise your anchor. If you can't raise your anchor, you can't move the boat. And everyone's going to go, no, well, you can hold the anchor up yourself. You can hold the anchor up yourself, but if you're in 25 meters of water and you're in a storm, you can't. So, you know, be done with. It's difficult and dangerous. So we have a spare starter for that reason. Let's move on to the important stuff. Engine spares. So every time I keep two of everything. So I have two fan belts, two spare impellers, and I'm going to come back to impellers in a minute. Fuel filters and bulbs. All our bulbs are LED, but I keep the old filament bulbs around just in case, because every now and then you get water ingress or moisture ingress into one of the LEDs, and it's actually easy just to swap it over and see if a filament bulb works. That happened to us in St Martin, didn't it? We swapped the LEDs over for these and they all worked again.
Whereabouts was that?
Do you remember when you went up the mast to swap the bulbs out? Yes. So that's really important thing. So to have spares. So yeah, fuel filters, oil filters, these bloody great lumps. This is big fuel filter for the Yanmar. So we keep a lot of spares, and two of each at all times. So engine spares, absolute must, because you know your diesel engine needs it needs a water supply to keep it cool. It needs clean fuel, and it needs air to run, and that's it. And if you've got those three things, your engine will run fine. The biggest problem that you're going to probably find is it's normally contaminated fuel. So if you have contaminated fuel, you've got to be able to clean the thing out. You've got to be able to clean your filters out and have spares for them. So that's why we have that. We also have spare fuel lines. Now we have spare fuel lines because I swapped all these out. I swapped all our fuel lines out in Antigua last year. We had a problem with our engine stalling, which I think eventually was decided to be diesel bug. But I read on some forum that Yanmar, or not Yanmar, or after 5 years or so, you should swap out your fuel lines because you get like a degradation of the interior lining, which causes the pipe to be kind of occluded. So I swapped the fuel lines out and added a diesel bug treatment, and it fixed the problem. What the actual reason was, I don't know, but anyway, so spare fuel lines. Just to quickly talk about impellers. Now, for any of you who have changed an impeller, you'll be like, oh my god, what a horrible job. Some of you that have got amazing big engine rooms and you're like, oh yeah, impeller, I'm going to do this, do it with one hand while kind of like Facebooking. Well done you. For us, we have 2 inches of space to change our impeller, and it is one of my least favourite jobs. So I have 2 impellers here. One is, they're both the same size and both fit our engine. This is an expensive one. When I say expensive, it's about $20-something. This is a cheaper one, which is about $15. The difference between A and B is that this little impeller has a thread in the middle of it. And the reason it has a thread in it is that Yanmar very kindly will sell you a screw. And this is the screw. Now this screw is, for what it is like stupid expensive. It was like, whatever, $30. But it basically is a very small impeller puller. So you take, there's a screw that goes into this one here, so that one screw goes into the other. You literally take your impeller cover off, push the outer screw in to the thread on the impeller, and then once you've got that in, what's wrong with this fucking thing? So once you've got it in, so you've put the outer thread in there, you then tighten the inner thread, and it literally just pulls the impeller out. So no more kind of pulling in along those plies, because that's how you damage the vanes. So one of our checks that we do on a seasonal basis is to pull the impellers out, or pull the impeller out and check it. So these little vanes, these little silicon vanes, you need to look for splits in them. And if I find splits, I just change it out. because I'd rather change it out and go, oh, there's an hour of me swearing while cutting my hands to ribbons, than having to change it, like trying to get into port in a storm because our engine's overheated because I didn't do my maintenance properly. So look after your impellers. As I said, a seasonal change. Sorry, someone's got their hand up at the back. A question to the small lady who's not filming playing with her hair. What would you like to know, Therese?
The impeller. You told me what it does before, but I can't remember. I think maybe it brings water into the engine.
Yeah, it's like a little turbine that brings water through the water pump to cool the engine. Yeah. Through a heat exchange system that works to. Yeah, I'm not going to go into the inner part. So I think those are engine spares that probably deal with everything I need to talk to you about for our engine. So yeah, spare alternator, spare filters for everything. Then domestic spares, which we have. These all form part of a spares kit for our water maker. So there's seals, there are spare parts, there is lubricant, there are valves. So this is all part of our water maker spares kit. Again, super useful. If your water maker goes down and you're using your water maker, you're probably somewhere quite remote. So we carry a lot of spares for our water maker. Now here's the thing. Despite having a water maker, we also keep enough bottled and jerry-canned emergency water on board for, I don't know, I think we had 5 weeks worth of water for 2 people when we crossed the Atlantic. We had a lot of water. We had crazy. I think we had 200 litres of water, didn't we? And we're buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 200 litres of bottled water,
Yeah.
in addition to always having our main tank full, which is another 250 litres. So we had 450 litres of water, which we figured, 2 litres a day is an emergency ration for people. 8 times 20 is 160. We had enough to continue in comfort. So yes. So that deals with that. Jabsco spares, we keep spares for toilets. This just happens to be the Joker valve for a Jabsco toilet. I have a continual gripe with Jabsco because everything breaks so bloody quickly. And the spares are so expensive. Just a quick tip, if you have one of those Jabsco, the pump toilets, which I think is this, yeah, it's like $80 for the service kit and it's $100 to replace the entire pump. I just replaced the entire pump because you haven't got to take it apart. For the extra $20, you get a new pump that works perfectly, rather than buy the service kit. There you go. Spares for our hydrovane, they're just pins, just in case we ever lose a pin. We could always push use a screwdriver, but that's useful. A bit of a random one, a spare prop for our bow thruster. Now you're like, why do you need one of those? Because this boat will not handle in a marina without a bow thruster, because she has twin rudders, no prop walk. And if you get like a plank of wood or something sucked into your bow thruster, you will bugger it straight away. So we carry a spare one. It's like a $30 part that if I was trying to find it in Panama or further on, I'd be like, oh, great. So I carry one for the sake of $30. Another thing that we carry is spare gas struts for the fridge, because these gas struts last a period of time and then they bust. So if your fridge lid packs up, it is a real pain in the backside and you trap fingers not having spare gas struts. So gas struts are something we also have. And then finally, a couple of safeties. Spare CO2 canisters for our life jackets. So if one of us accidentally deploys our life jacket or falls in, we can then safely, repack the life jacket and have it functional. Really useful if you're sailing offshore. And finally, in our spares, it's an emergency VHF antenna, which again, probably only useful if you are sailing offshore. It is really important that if you lose your mast, you have some way of using your VHF radio, which without an antenna you would struggle. So this comes in a waterproof bag. It's something that we have as offshore safety equipment, but also as an offshore spare. So that did. Flaming hell was that? I'll do that again. Where's our VHF on my boat? Anyway, that deals with the spares. We've been asked a lot about the spares. This is not an exclusive list. It deals with most of it. There's other stuff in lockers that will be like, oh, it slipped my mind this morning. But we do carry a lot of spares. A lot of the spares that we've put together have come from a list. We have lists of you know, people, especially when we did the ARC were very good in providing us with a list of spares that we should carry. But a lot of the other things that we found have been as a result of just trial and error, what we found we needed. And then we're like, you know, for instance, one thing I didn't mention is this, it's a spare gas regulator, just for our gas system, because again, if your gas regulator goes down, and ours has already gone down once before, I want to be able to change out the gas regulator and get our cooking gas back up and running.
Now we'll probably have a spare water pump because, you know, the water...
We do have a spare water pump, and I can canalize the bits out of it. There's always a way of fixing things, and I suppose the thing is, you have to be able to fix everything. If you are sailing between ports where there's always a West Marine or a, you know, an Island Water World or a whatever Chandler's you want, Amazon, it's easy. You just go, oh fine, we've got no water for a day. If you're not having water for 3 months because you know you don't have backups, you know, you need to carry this stuff. And again, I know I talk about this a lot, it is just all peace of mind. Like it's not that this stuff is going to go wrong, but I think, well, if it goes wrong, I've got the part for it. And this is not exclusive. If you saw the video last week, I couldn't find a part, but I fixed it anyway. So it's just about thinking, if that goes wrong, I can do this. If this goes wrong, I can do this. And I spend a lot of time, and any kind of good offshore skipper should have these contingencies built into what their plan is. If you talk about these things in business or in crisis emergency, what is the plan? Now, you can't plan for everything, like what if, for instance, you know, you hit a whale and your boat sinks? What if, you know, you accidentally set the flares off in the galley when you've drunk 2 bottles of rum and you set fire to your boat? What if your partner pushes you overboard because she's pissed off with you? What if... Yes, exactly. So thankfully we are down to the final locker in the saloon. There's also 2 massive stern lockers that have another set of things in it, but this kind of deals with like 90% of the spares that we carry. So I'm going to just run through this with you bit by bit. So we have 2 toolboxes here which are specifically for electrics, wiring and other bits and bobs. I will run through the things that I keep in there. A set of pliers, different sets of pliers for specifically for electrics, so that they don't get damaged. So actually, pliers, snips for cutting wire, another set of needle fires, electrical screwdrivers, wire strippers, a Stanley knife or a blade, and ratchet crimpers, really useful on boats for terminals. So I have a set of those. Also, chock block, like loads of this, different sizes for doing electrical connections. Self-amalgamating tape, because I like it. And then we have boxes of different connectors, spade connectors, ring connectors, all different sizes, male and female, where we've got bullet connectors, so we can connect wire together in any way. I also keep on board reels of wire. This is just thin wire, but I've got like shorter lengths of even thicker wire. This spool just is for kind of really, really low current stuff. So that's kind of something that we definitely have. Also spare fuses for everything. This is a 400 amp fuse in case our bow thruster fuse blows. These are other small fuses for other bits that we need in case a fuse goes and we don't have them. So I try and keep all this stuff on board. In the same locker, and I haven't dug it out because quite frankly I can't be buggered, there is a lower locker. Inside that locker there are things like sealant guns, there is a grease gun, there is a full GRP repair kit. So we've got a fiberglass repair kit, we have a gel coat repair kit which is extensive and colour matched specifically to the colour of this boat when it came out the factory. So that we have boxes for doing different jobs. This is one of them. This is my woodworking box. So in here there is wet and dry sandpaper, lots of it, wire wool for doing repairs on woodwork if we need to repair woodwork. So that is kind of like a really useful thing because the woodwork does get dinged and those things need to be fixed. In addition to that, within this area, the electronics realm, a really good multimeter. And you need a multimeter. Cheaper ones don't measure current, they just do voltage. You need one that will measure a current. So this one is a good one. We remember buying this in the Canary Islands. And yeah, so I use this a lot. So get to use and get to know how to use a multimeter before you set off if that's what you intend to do. Another thing that we have is It's called a cable access kit. It's a conduiting kit in a nutshell. These are segments or sections of flexible fiberglass rod that will join together and enable you to push and pull wires through, or cables through bits of the boat. It is my least favourite job to do, but this kit is invaluable. Again, Amazon for like very little money, really useful. Moving on to tools that I haven't mentioned. I mentioned this before, a spiral saw. Whoops! We have a spiral saw, really good for cutting holes in difficult places. Soldering irons, we have soldering irons for doing electrical work. Again, make sure that you know how to use your soldering iron effectively. Then boxes of spares, we have 600 fibre washers. In here we have 400 rubber grommets, just in case. This is heat shrink. I love heat shrink. It's like, yeah, it turns me on a little bit, kind of in a bit of a weird way. Heat shrink for just sealing wire terminals effectively. How does it shrink? And this thing, which, oops, looks like it's almost lost its shit. Yeah, I don't want to. This has lost its clasp, so I'm going to make sure I do this up. No, you don't, you bloody dare. It is, and this has saved us. This actually saved us a lift out once before. This is, it's like 500 O-rings, and it cost like $5 from Amazon, but it is such a useful thing to have because O-rings get bent, get distorted, and we had a dripping seacock. And I'm like, shit, we got to get lifted out. Took it all apart. I'm like, oh, that O-ring's damaged. Put the O-ring back in and stop dripping. So, having an O-ring set, as I said, all this stuff is so cheap on Amazon or, you know, your local internet delivery service, whatever it is, wherever you are. Yeah, love those. And then pills and potions that I keep on board. Contact oil, you can get this anywhere. But there's also, oops, contact cleaner, really useful stuff for electrical corrosion problems. Corrosion inhibitor for once you've cleaned it. Lithium grease for greasing everything, and that we also have a grease gun. White vinegar, which is for cleaning and stopping mold coming in. We have distilled water for the batteries, and then a whole series of different varnishes for varnishing different parts of the boat, either polyurethane varnish or this stuff like the spray varnish. You get a much better finish with this. This is not useful for doing like high traffic areas, but for doing different parts of the woodwork, little dings, this is really good. So I think that covers all our tools. As I said, it's not extensive. There are things I haven't brought out because they're buried deep in a locker that I never really use. Things like I've got like a 2-foot crowbar, which is longer than 2 foot. We've got like a really heavy industrial set of bolt cutters, which I will probably bring out in a later video on safety. And this is what we travel with. So you can probably understand now that when I take the boat apart looking for a screwdriver and I've got to go through all this, this is why I trash the place and how I kind of want a workshop, but this boat does not have a workshop, so there you go, suck it up, boy. So thank you for watching this bit. I hope this has been informative to you. If you have kind of got yourself to a position where you're like, God, how boring is this? We have been asked so many times about what tools and spares we carry. So this is for those of you who kind of are thinking of doing this and will probably already have stuff, but generally by discussing information. And I learned a lot of this stuff through sitting in the pub with my friends who are sailors, and they're like, do you have this? I'm like, oh no, I don't have this. You know, better go and get one just in case. The other thing I haven't mentioned, and we have 2 of these, is a strap spanner. And a strap spanner is for getting, just removing filters. So it's like a rubber strap that kind of goes back on itself. A really important item to have a strap spanner. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe there. We're going to be putting out more videos, either the instructional ones, which we'll put in a separate category, or actual sailing videos once we get this boat up and running and fixed. See you again soon.